All right, Greg.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome.
We are
Number 2.
We are live. We hope we get all our technical difficulties out of the way. We're a couple minutes late, but that's okay. We're glad anyone's here listening in and excited to talk about some New Year's resolutions and how it affects our health and weight loss journeys and whatever else we want to accomplish for the coming year.
Right.
We got a special guest as well. First of all, I'm Rick Sorensen.
I'm Greg Camp.
And we worked together in the medical field for a lot of years. Talking about weight loss, and today specifically it's December 30th, so we're thinking about New Year's resolutions, and we want to get into that just a little bit and talk about kind of how do we make them successful, right?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of the age-old question, right? New Year's resolutions are as old as time, and it is a great time to to focus on these things, right? You get through the holidays, you have a little extra time to think like, okay, holidays are done, hopefully you've kind of finished off the extra cookies and sweets. And so now it's a good time to focus in on your health. The idea behind this podcast and our bigger vision would be that we just get rid of New Year's resolutions altogether, at least as it relates to our health and wellness, that we can find a little more consistent pattern to where you're not just doing this big push at the first of the year and the rest of the year you're just putting all that weight and
angry that you didn't do your thing.
So the idea long term would be to try to help people find a more consistent lifelong pattern as opposed to New Year's resolutions. But for people that just haven't started that journey or that process, the new year is a fantastic time to get going on that.
Okay, so let's get into it. Just as a reminder, before we get started, the information that we discuss here on Healthier Ever After is for educational and informational purposes only and not intended to be medical advice. We may discuss topics such as weight loss strategies, nutrition, exercise, GLP-1 medications, supplements, and weight loss programs. But this podcast is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Always consult with your physician or qualified healthcare provider before starting or changing any medications, supplement, or health program, especially if you have an underlying medical condition. All right, now we got that out of the way. We have a special guest. We're going to invite her on if I can run that. There's Mari. Hey, Mari.
Hey.
So I invited Mari on. Mari's one of the people I've known for a lot of years. In fact, I got to tell a little story of like how I was really tempted. I was nice to see Latia, your daughter, kind of was friendly and gave us a little shout out. For Christmas last week, I gave all of my adult children a little thumb drive with photos. And you remember, like when we started having children, we didn't have digital cameras or cell phones or the internet, and so we have like hundreds of physical photographs. And so my wife and I have been going through and scanning those in. And so we gave for Christmas all the like digital copies of all these scanned photos. And as we went through that, I have some amazing pictures of you and of Latia when she, I think, had to be 3 years old, like an Easter egg hunt. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of years ago. And I was tempted to bring them on and like show them, but I thought, I won't do that. But she's but I was looking at those. One of the things that stood out to me is that I mean, now I've known you for almost 30 years and have these old pictures, and you're one of the people that I look at and think you look better now than you did 30 years ago. Not that you were ugly or anything, but you look great, and you've been through kind of a journey with that.
Definitely.
So tell us a little about yourself and kind of how you got into this and into coaching and helping others, and what your journey was like.
Okay, well, like you say, Rick, I've struggled with weight loss for as long as I can remember. So I have a lot to offer. a lot of things that I've been through, a lot of things I've tried, all the things. But and I think, when you're having children, you're like gaining weight, then you want to lose it, then you're gaining it back, then you're losing it. So there's all that complication. But I would say probably 8 years ago, and my youngest child is now 21. So I can no longer blame having children on being overweight. But I would say probably 8 years ago, I started listening to podcasts, and there were a lot of mindset. And I kind of always blamed my lack of self-confidence on my weight. And so I was like, let's dig into this. Like, why don't I have, like, is it really my weight? Whatever. And I realized that I had a lot of negative self-talk, and that negative self-talk will feed the the need to feel better, which for me was eating. So I feel, it's like a cycle, shame cycle. Like I feel bad about myself, I want to feel better, so I eat, then I feel worse. It's just like round and round and round. So the tools that I found to manage my mind and my thoughts about myself were really the ticket for me to understand what was driving my emotional eating. And so once I could get a handle on that, my thoughts were creating those feelings, then I could change my thoughts, which changed my feelings, and then change my actions, which is when the weight loss really started to stick. And then listening to all those podcasts, I decided, hey, I want to become a life coach. So I did, certified. And then I started working for a female physician who had become a weight loss life coach. And we coached women physicians who wanted to lose weight. So really narrow niche. But I did that for 3 years and really learned how to help people understand how important mindset is in losing weight. But then also in the last couple of years, I've started using the GLP-1s, which are a huge mindset tool.
Okay, now by GLP-1s, that's medications, semaglutide, tirzepatide, those kind of things. Okay, great. And so back onto your mental game. How did that help?
The what?
The mental game.
Oh,
I mean, it sounds like a big step in this was really getting your head in the right space,
right.
and it's not just about do these things, count your calories, take the steps, but a lot more going on upstairs in your brain.
Absolutely, because like I said, when I recognized that what I was thinking was creating what I was feeling, and what I was feeling was driving the actions of eating. Right? Because I wanted to feel better. When I was thinking the negative thoughts about myself, I felt awful. When I felt awful, I wanted to feel better, and food was my way. That was just the way that I had always dealt with negative emotion. And so when I recognized if I change my thoughts, that will change my feelings, then that will change my actions. It really came down to, what was I thinking? And can I think differently on purpose in order to change how I feel, which would then change?
And can anyone? I mean, is this something that you found people can do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's life-changing.
Okay, awesome.
But Maury, you have to realize and believe it.
Yeah.
And you can only do that by doing it. Right? Yeah.
Maury, the thing that jumped out to me as you're kind of explaining your process and your story is that I see hundreds of patients in clinic that share similar experiences. Maybe they can't always verbalize it as nicely as you did there, but it's because I think it sounds like you've really processed kind of what was happening. So this is all, hindsight's 2020. But I have so many patients that come to the clinic that really are just frustrated. And whether it's, your body changing through children and life and just getting older and things slowing down, and all the reasons that our bodies do change, it's the thing that jumped out to me, what you said that I've never really heard verbalized quite that way, is kind of that rather than trying to change your body and then change your mind, you just flipped it and you really started attacking the mind and then let the body stuff happen afterwards. And I think that's a really good way to put it, because it's a lot of times people do crash diet and things like that, thinking that if I change my body, if I lose that first 15 pounds, the mind will come along with it. But having all of us, at least on this podcast, sounds like it struggled with food and eating and all the mental things that come with that. It's
when you say struggle with food, I feel like I love food.
Right. Right. Well, struggle with maybe excess food or maybe the wrong foods, right? I mean, we all have to have food to live. So it's hard because food can't be the enemy. It actually needs to be a tool, and it should be, I think, an enjoyable thing. So But I just found that you sharing your experience right there and having me listen to, like I said, hundreds, if not thousands of patients at this point. I think you put it in a really good way of making sure that you're focusing on the mind stuff first, and that the body can change afterwards. If you do it the opposite way, it tends to be a lot harder, because I do think that mindset wise, you end up, you can get very distracted if your body's not cooperating. As we know, our bodies oftentimes will not. If your mind's not in it at that point, then that's when we just resort back to eating and trying to feel better. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, something that we often said was you can't hate yourself then, right? That's usually at least for me, that in my experience, that was what I was doing. I was like beating myself up. Like, this is, you need to do this. You have to do this. Like shame, like you can't, you're not worthy unless you lose weight. Like, it was just like constant shaming myself. But that didn't make me want to try to
eat more.
Yeah, because then I just felt worse.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then I turned back to food. So that's why I say it was a cycle. It was just like, and the thing is, I could do it for a little while. I could stay on a diet and exercise for a little while, but my language didn't change to myself, which was, you've got to lose weight. In order to have value and be worthy, you've got to lose weight. So I just keep ramming it down. I mean, just keep saying the same things over and over to myself. And after a while, you feel so horrible that you're like, I'll do anything to feel better. And for me, it was just go back to food.
So would you call this that mindset stuff? Then that would be like a key principle to focus on when people are working on
absolutely
their goals.
Yeah, I mean, it is the key principle. You can focus on diet and exercise forever, but it's a constant battle because you're constantly battling your mind.
How does somebody do that? So we're, tomorrow we're ready to, jump into our New Year's resolutions and decide I'm going to do this thing. Like, how does somebody do this?
Yeah,
or make this a definable thing?
Even how do you start, right? Yeah. Like, cause I think your coaching, that's kind of where that comes from. And you're like, could you, do everything you do in coaching in 15 minutes on a podcast? Obviously not. So maybe even to narrow that down, where do you start? Like, where does someone get started if they're like, hey, I'm ready to make the change, but I don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
I think it starts with awareness. Like, just listen to your thoughts to yourself. And when you start to hear the negative self-talk, you have to just, I mean, I would do a thing where I'm like, we don't talk like that anymore. Like, I'm not talking like that to myself anymore. It's like, you just have to make
like you would tell your
we don't do
young
that.
child. These aren't words we use.
Yes. Which is hard because it's a pattern. Like, we think it has worked, and so we just go back to it. But like I said, you just have to start with the awareness. Like, these are the thoughts I'm thinking about myself. I want to do something different. I need to do something different. So you're going to listen and notice, like, when you say something to yourself, like, unless you lose weight, you're not going to, you have no value. And just be like, that's not, you have to recognize the thoughts. And then what actually is true? Do I have value beyond what I weigh? And have to start, like, really dialing into, how can I think differently? How can I believe differently? And I think one of the really helpful things is to think of, would you ever talk like that to someone else? Yeah. And would you ever say to someone else, like, you don't have as much value because you're not thin?
No, we can be pretty brutal to ourselves.
Absolutely.
As far as you ended up like saying that you started watching podcasts and things like that. Were the podcasts the thing that you found that helped kind of propel you in once you kind of acknowledged that, hey, this is a problem, I can't talk to myself this way? Were you finding that the podcast or things, hopefully what this is to some people eventually, were you finding that was your initial source of help, or did you have someone or maybe multiple people that you relied on? How did you kind of start that process, and how did you get going in that direction as far as resources?
Yeah, it really was podcast for quite a while. Probably, like, I would say 2 years,
Yeah.
just listening to the same podcast. And it was a mindset podcast. It was not a weight loss podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Because you were trying to get the mind right, not necessarily start on your weight loss journey quite yet, or maybe you were kind of doing it, together. But when you would run into issues, roadblocks, things like that, as you were going through that process, what were some of the things that helped you pull out of it? Was it binge watch more podcasts, or was it, I don't know, talking to a friend or your husband, or like, what was your go-to to try to get out of that didn't result in you just turning to the pantry and, eating yourself until you felt bad?
I did a lot of journaling, where I would write down what my thoughts were, and then I would go back and read them. And I started a process where I would recognize that these certain thoughts were causing these feelings, and those feelings were what was driving me to eat. So I really, really slowed the process down for myself. Writing, like I said a minute ago, when you asked how do you start? You start with awareness. And for me, the awareness started with slowing down my thought process so much by writing it down that I could actually see like what I was thinking. And then realizing, like reading that sentence that was on a piece of paper and saying, when I think this, then I feel this, or asking myself, how do I feel when I think this? And then noticing, well, that feeling is for sure going to drive me to want to eat. So this thought right here, we're going to like literally take this thought and we're not thinking this thought anymore. And a lot of times I could find another thought that I could think instead. But you have to start with the awareness, recognizing what your thoughts are, and then being willing to not think them anymore. Be willing to think differently, knowing that when you think differently, you feel differently, and then you do things differently.
Yeah. It's interesting. You were talking about how a lot of your clientele, when you were, you may still be doing it, but as far as the coaching goes, specifically with female physicians, I believe is what you said. So that, like you said, very niche, very narrow clientele. I think most of us associate physicians with people that obviously have a lot of drive, are very motivated, are very career driven. I think in a lot of ways that's, you feel like if someone we associate with such prestige, because of all their accomplishments, and obviously usually have a pretty, a pretty strong mindset. I mean, if they can struggle with something like this, I mean, now you start to realize like, oh, okay, this is not, this isn't a smart thing. This isn't an IQ thing, or a lot of us, no matter what our background is, struggle in this.
Right. And I think for a lot of the physicians that I coached, they were obviously very achievement driven. And for many of them, they would say like, this is the one thing I cannot figure out. Like I can be the smartest person, I can learn all these things, I can achieve all these things, I can accomplish all this, and I cannot figure this out. But they were like, in the achieving, there's going to be negative emotions still. Like they don't achieve the thing, they don't get the accolades. And how do I feel better? And so they would also turn to food, right? It's just common. Like we call it buffering, when you use something else to help you feel better. And there's lots of things. There's alcohol, there's shopping, there's gambling, there's porn, turning to something else to take away the negative feeling. It's like to mask it, to buffer it. And many, many, many of us use food.
Yeah.
And it's all to avoid feeling a certain way.
Sure. All right. Question, Rick?
Yes. So I'm just looking at a couple of things. So we talked about New Year, and kind of it's the New Year resolution time, right? We're heading into the new year. What's your advice to people who are trying to set realistic and sustainable goals, health goals that actually stick?
Well, I'm going to always come back to mindset, and you can set goals with your mindset too, right? Like, I am going to think better of myself. Whether that's like reciting mantras or writing. I think that the writing that I talked about, where you just
that's big.
drawing the awareness to your thoughts. And
is there a technique? And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Sure.
off there. Is there a technique as far as, because I mindset obviously huge. I'm sure with your coaching, that was one thing that you just really had to hammer home, because it's something that's just so important. Is there anything particular in mindset specifically that you're like, okay, if you're going to start, like you said, doing mantras or journaling? I know writing it down is a huge one. We've known that for many years, but people have a hard time doing that. So is there anything specifically that you would say, hey, like I'm at this stage where I know I want to change my mindset? Like, what's the beginning steps for something like that?
Well, I mean, of course, I would say for me as a life coach, it's easier to have someone else who can help you. Like, so I said, you can journal, you can see your thoughts, but if you can talk to someone else and they can see what's going on with your brain, like, you know what I mean? Like, I would have clients come to me, and what we do in the beginning is they would just like share with me an experience that they had. And then we would just draw out, like, what were you thinking? And then like question the thought. Is that true? And many times it's just, we've thought a thought so many times it becomes a belief.
Yeah.
So we can just question, like, is that true? Meaning like a thought like, I can't not eat sweets. Is that true? Like, some people will say that. Like, even you, Greg, when you were introducing yourself to me, talked about how your family is sweet eaters.
Yeah.
Having that as an identity is going to be a problem.
100%.
Right?
100%.
You're going to.
I'm Greg.
So,
I'm a sweet eater.
So I'm a person who eats sweets.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Is a different, totally different thought than I'm a sweet eater.
So you're defining an action as something you do occasionally, sometimes, all the time, whatever, not who you are.
Exactly. Yep.
I think that's a good point. And I didn't even realize when I was talking to you that I had kind of gone down that road. And I've said that a million times, and no one's ever actually just pointed out the fact that I'm kind of identifying that I'm making this part of like who I am and my personality, when it's really just an arbitrary action. That I like sweets. Who doesn't?
This is the moment on the podcast where Greg, as a healthcare provider focusing on weight loss, identifies himself as a sweet eater.
I do.
And gets called out.
I can call you out on something else you said, Greg. You said, my family, we are storers.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
But
so this is kind of what you do, right? I mean, we talked for a brief moment and you just heard a few things I said. You pick up on those things. I'm not even recognizing it, right? I do this for a living. I talk to 1 million patients, and I guess we all have our own personal biases, like against ourselves in a way. And when we put ourselves into that corner, we just becomes our identity and so you're saying like, hey, you got to get your mindset right, and don't make that you eat sweets and that your family's, stores like crazy. Don't make that your belief system that's you. Maybe you can make an observation, but it's not, you got to change your mindset about how you approach that.
Yeah. Cause you create what you think.
Yeah.
Is 100% true. Like, I can take you through a whole model where you will see that what you think is what your result is.
Yeah.
So,
and in just a second, like she pointed two things out that you said that you didn't even recognize. Like, I think a lot of this, so what I'm hearing you say, Mari, is that it's bringing these thoughts that we maybe just have in our own internal dialogue that we aren't aware of. We're not don't recognize that as that self-talk. And I think what you talk about, journaling, just becoming even just aware before anything else of the way that you are talking to and treating yourself.
Yeah. So identifying some of those things that you think are your identity. I mean, when we talk about what we can do different this year, is just diving into what is it that I think over and over and over that is creating this, and how can I think differently? Like, just questioning everything about your identity that you like. My guess is, Greg, you heard that somewhere from someone
Geez,
in your
probably.
family,
I don't even remember. I think I've been saying it for so many years. Like
Yeah.
you said, it's just become a belief system, I guess. And I've used it, I'm sure, many times, even in clinic, talking to patients. So it is interesting to start thinking about mindset. You sometimes feel like you have it maybe kind of dialed in pretty good, but I think this is where it really comes into oftentimes having, whether it's a podcast or someone you can talk to that can make these observations to kind of help you really unwind all this jumble that's in your brain, and really help you like determine, hey, where are we going wrong? This is the wrong direction. And then how do we move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can we geek out on science for just a second?
Yeah.
Because, as medical providers, we focus on science and things like that. So if you look at research that's done on goal setting, we're talking about New Year's resolutions, setting some goals, like, why do New Year's resolutions usually fail? What kind of things? And even if you look on the little thumbnail for tonight, there, the little New Year's baby has goals on the wall: exercise more, eat better, lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Those are outcome goals, and those are not successful. Those tend to fail. And that's the kind of things that we tend to set. I want to lose weight. I want to lose X number of pounds. I want to exercise more. I want to eat healthy. Those are based on kind of outcomes of behaviors. The types of goals that have been shown to be more successful are process based, not outcome based. So that would be goals like, I will walk for 20 minutes after dinner 4 times a week, or I will focus on protein for 1 meal a day, or some definable small action that's the process, and let the outcome happen.
Yeah.
But the process type goals really have been shown to be, that's what's effective. That's something to keep in mind, I think, is what daily things you can do. Did you focus on that at all?
Well, let me just tell you that the things you just suggested are actions, right? What'd you say? Eat protein more or go walk? So what I'm offering is the thought and the feeling that come before the action are where you start. Where your power is I am a person who walks, right? Or
Okay.
I am a person who eats protein, or I am someone who can have a healthy body.
Yeah.
Right. And like, it's sometimes hard to jump from I'm a fat slob to I'm a healthy person. So that you want to, what can you actually believe right now about yourself? I am someone who can eat more protein. I am someone who can walk 20 minutes a day.
Yeah. So it's more of a mindset. It sounds like you do a little bit of a stepwise process. You're like, hey, look, don't, and no pun intended with the eating, but don't bite off more than you can chew. Like, start with small things. Don't try to go from, talking down to yourself, saying, I am fat, I can't lose weight, and then go to this, I'm an Olympic athlete, because that's just too much. Is it, at least that's what I'm hearing when you're telling me that, is like, we need to start with smaller steps to have some success.
Absolutely. Yeah. And bring your mind into the process. And it's interesting how you jump straight to action, which is what we have been taught to do. We got to do these actions in order to get this result. But if we can back it up before the action, if we can think, what can I be thinking that will create motivation for me to want to do the action and get the result?
Yeah. That's a good point, because I think we've all been there. Anyone that's ever gone down this journey, and that's probably most people that will ever watch this podcast or this episode, is, how many times have we said, I'm going to work out today, but then let that be a fleeting thought. It was just a thought. It left. We didn't do anything about it. So But if you're like, no, I'm going to work out today and I'm not going to get that out of my brain until that action actually takes place, as opposed to it just being kind of a passive thought, it makes a lot of sense.
Or even, I am a person who works out.
Oh yeah.
I am a person who works out.
But so if I think,
or I'm
I've got
becoming
my
a
thought
person.
process. I'm someone who exercises. I'm someone who works out, and I've got this in my head. How do I translate that into I actually go work out? Because
Well, if you are a person,
then I can't. I stop believing myself. Like, I'm really not that guy. I just said I was that guy, but I don't do that.
So if you thought the thought, I am a person who works out, you don't think it would translate to actually working out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I just worry about, yes.
Can I rephrase that? I guess maybe if I can rephrase that. So what about dealing with those pitfalls? Like, I think what he's saying is that he's told himself he's trying to change his mindset. I'm a person that works out. And then if he doesn't work out, is there a strategy? Can he start with a smaller goal or a smaller, I guess, an easier statement to make? Like, what's maybe the strategy that you've maybe used in the past, or something you could suggest to try to get us past those failures? Because it's going to happen at times.
Right. One big, huge thing is if you say to yourself, I am someone who works out every day, and then you don't work out that day, then you don't tell yourself, oh, I am not a person who works out every day, or I failed, or I can't do it, or all that self-talk, even when you don't do the thing, is very, very important. And one of my favorites is I'm figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah. I'm
figuring out how to be a person. Or any other form that you come up with for yourself. That's one that works for me. But you don't tell yourself you're a failure. You don't tell yourself, oh no, it's because I'm a storer, or revert back to a previous identity. You just got to keep every day reminding yourself, oh, I didn't work out yesterday. That's okay. I'm becoming someone who works out every day.
Yeah. So what I'm here. So can we talk about The Bachelor?
Sure.
For a second. So you had your few minutes of fame. We all saw you on hometown visits on The Bachelor. And I think I mentioned this to you. I saw that, and we all tuned in and saw, this beautiful Wyoming scenery and a couple of horse ride, and then we'll chat with you and with Rob and Grandpa. And it was a few minutes of this polished, awesome thing. What was the back end of that like? Did it come together? Was it did it take 20 minutes to throw together, or what was that like?
So we were probably filming for 7 hours, which I think it was on the screen for, I don't know, 8 minutes.
8 minutes, so 7 hours, and it was, let's retake this, let's do that. A whole lot of back end work that we as an audience didn't see, right?
Right.
And so what came to my mind as I was thinking about that I think a lot of what you're talking about is if I have this thing, I'm someone who works out, but then there's the daily grind, there's the everyday rethinking that, retelling myself that, actually going to work out or eating better, whatever it is the actions that I'm doing, and I believe that I'm the person that does that. There's a whole lot of work that goes into that before I have my kind of social media event. Like we see all these little snippet results on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, whatever it is, of people's one kind of 10 seconds of awesome. But there's a whole lot in the back end that we don't see. And I think remembering that sometimes is helpful because there is a lot of the daily grind. There's if I'm going to lose 50 pounds in a year, there's a year of work and of daily get up and do the thing. And I think it's important to remember that that's not really what there's a big, long process behind all of this before you get to this kind of result that you want.
Right. And that's why it's so important to not beat yourself up over not doing well one day. And just remembering oh, that's, I am someone who's learning how to, I am becoming someone, I am figuring out how. Just keep building yourself up. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. No one is going to do it for you, right? It all is in your control by what you're thinking.
Something that jumps out to me, and I'm going a little off topic here, Mari, but I'm a father of 3 little girls. And I'm finding more and more as they get older is just trying to navigate this whole mindset thing, which is what you're talking about, trying to talk to them about, when they're upset or they're mad. And even at their young age, I mean, my 9 and 8-year-old, they've already been dealing with things at school where it's like kids are talking about other kids being bigger, overweight, or all these things. And I've been really trying to work with them mindset wise of how they navigate these things and how to talk about food with them and exercise and everything else without obviously shaming them or that. But I think in our conversation, you're kind of getting at that it does start with mindset. So rather than talking to them about, kids, for example, I mean, they're probably more impressionable than adults, but the what I'm hearing is that you're saying that, like, even with them, it's rather than focus on the outcome of, like, even saying being healthy or being skinny or being strong, like you're saying it actually starts earlier than that with like a mindset. Like you need to start getting like, I am strong, not I'm going to become strong, but I am strong. I am a person who's active. I'm a person who eats good. I'm a person who's nice to others. If you want to like explore, going out beyond just health. I know that's what we're kind of focused on, but does that make sense? And is that computing or?
Yeah. And I love with kids focusing on their effort.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see you really, really tried hard today. Or I can see you were really, you were really doing your best.
Yeah.
And then using that on yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
this is how we want to talk to our kids is how we need to be talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point.
So, can you share some examples of how you blend life coaching and health coaching together? Like how, I guess it sounds similar. Are they the same thing? Are they similar?
Well, I mean, because of my focus on mindset, it basically carries into everything you do. Like when I talked about how I started listening to podcasts in an effort to think differently, then it just bled into everything of my life. Like, how my relationships with others and with myself, which when I'm talking positively to myself, when I'm building myself up, when I'm reminding myself that my value and worth do not depend, that my appearance or my weight, number on the scale does not determine my value. And it's really, really, really buying into that and really believing that. So that will show up in all areas of your life. Like I said, relationships, weight, health. And that's why, even though I was specifically coaching on weight loss, most of the things that they brought were not weight loss related. They were like things that were going on in the office or with patients or with medical record systems or whatever that were creating that stress, which then turned to the food. So we're talking about how to manage our minds so that how we feel, we can then not need to turn to something else to feel better. And a big, big component of my life coaching also is emotions. Learning to allow the negative emotion and not have to use something to feel better. That's not something we've touched on, but it is a huge component. And it's,
how does that work? And what is that like practically?
Okay. So, like if I give the example of a doctor that let's just use medical records. Like we all know that doctors use a specific medical record system, and it can be very frustrating, especially if you change in the middle and you have to like keep seeing your patients, but then you're also trying to learn this new computer system. And
never experienced that ever
since October 28th.
No, never.
This year.
Boy, have not. If I had hair, it would have been pulled out again.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was something that would be brought up often, and how they would go home at night, having had so much stress during the day doing that. They would go home and they'd be like, I just want to feel better. And so I'm going to eat. And so we would talk about how when you go home at night, can you just feel the frustration or the anger or whatever the feeling is and not have to use something to feel better?
Yeah.
Which is, it's a totally new concept for people.
Yeah.
Like, you mean I just have to feel bad? Why would I do that? Well,
Yeah.
the reason you would is so that you don't eat, and you don't gain weight as a result of having hard things at work or in life, really.
Well, and being creatures of habit, I mean, I think, once again, talking about the science, getting that dopamine, very short-lived dopamine hit that Rick mentioned, you go home from a long day at work, and when you should have been done eating 3 hours ago because you're going home to go to bed, and instead you go to that Captain Crunch and you just get that dopamine hit. And maybe just for 5 minutes while you're eating that cereal, you're not that worried about medical records anymore, just for that 5 minutes. But it sounds like to me what you're saying is mindset wise, you're like, hey, it's a very small win because you don't have to think about it for 2 seconds. But ultimately long term, it's a lose because now you're creating this crutch, and you ultimately are going to turn to that over and over again. And ultimately it'll just leave you more frustrated because then you are dealing with the health implications and everything else that come along with making that decision. And it never really fixes anything. If I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. And then the negative self-talk comes in not very long after you eat the Captain Crunch. Then you start, beating yourself up again. Oh, why did I do that? You recognize like that I actually don't feel better now. Right. So then the cycle begins again where you're beating yourself up, you're feeling shame. And then, inevitably you're going to turn to something else to feel better. And so we teach a lot about just being able to sit in the emotion as a way to avoid these habits that we create that create havoc on our life.
What are your thoughts on creating to try to align with your mindset? What are your thoughts on creating like physical barriers? So meaning like, if it is a bowl of cereal that you want to go get every time you get home from work because you're just stressed, and that's like been this thing you've been going to for 2 years, even though afterwards you're just going to feel horrible about it. And now it's going to be, now I'm stressed about medical records, and I'm stressed about the 3 bowls of Captain Crunch that had just got annihilated. What about, is there a suggestion there to say, hey, look, like part of this is getting rid of the Captain Crunch? Or are you more like, keep the Captain Crunch there, let's fix your mindset so that it doesn't matter if it's there or not? Like, where do you stand with that?
That's a really good question. We had a lot of back and forth with that. The physician who ran the organization that I worked for, she really, really wanted people to get to the point where they could have the food in the house and really be able to manage their mind and their emotions so well that it didn't bother them. But that's a big jump, from, having that be your comfort in the evening. So sometimes a physical barrier is helpful for sure, and then maybe slowly reintroducing it as you get better at managing your mind and your emotions. But I say whatever's going to help you, I would do that. And that's also, we haven't brought up the GLP-1 semaglutide and tirzepatide, but that is a tool that I've been using. Like you can take the Captain Crunch out of your house. You can also, with these medications, take the desire for food away. That is a huge, huge tool that I am grateful for. And when you asked what are some other tools you can use, this is definitely those GLP-1s has definitely been a great tool for me. They actually quiet my mind. As much as they have changed my appetite, they have changed my brain around food. And I could not be more grateful.
That seems to be, we're talking about GLP-1 medication. That seems to be one of the first things that a lot of people notice is that that food noise, the distracting. I noticed when, like when I was doing that and losing some weight. So we work in an emergency department, and everybody brings food, and there's like this trough of delicious always there, especially around the holidays. People bring like, oh, so and so's mom made cream puffs or whatever it is, and I love good food. And I got to the point where I think what we're talking about is so I did have a physical barrier. Mari, my daughter Carly, she works with me as a scribe, and she at times, knowing my journey and my intent to be a healthier person, she was sometimes very good about kind of giving me that look like, you're really gonna have that donut?
Gonna do it?
And so that's helpful. But I got to the point, honestly, where as someone who just absolutely just love food, I love to taste food, is I could say to myself, you know what, somebody just brought this amazing thing to eat, and I can enjoy that by smelling it. Like I literally got to the point where I was like, that really smells delicious. I don't need to eat any of it.
No.
But I've enjoyed that.
Sure.
Somewhat. And that to me, that was like kind of how that food noise diminished a little bit.
Right. Because I think the point is, Mari, and just kind of putting together what you and Rick had said is like, and we talked about those physical barriers. I mean, looking at the GLP-1s as, I mean, you can't get rid of all the food in your house. I mean, we have to eat in order to live and survive. So it's not like an alcoholic trying to get rid of their, alcohol problem. I mean, they can cut that completely out and create that big physical barrier there and just get it out. With food, you have to have food around, and you have to have it available because you need the nutrients. And of course, we're never advocating for a starvation diet. We want people to eat and eat good. And so that's where the GLP-1s, I think, have been so helpful for so many people, including all of us, is that we do start finding this self-control. And I know the feedback I get from patients all the time is taking some of that control back really does help with their mindset. They really feel like, okay, great. Now that I got a control of that, it really does bleed into every aspect of their life. They feel like they're not tackling that thing all the time, so they can really focus in on some of the other areas in their life that they really want to work on. So I don't know, is that something that you're seeing in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. What I tell people is it just like frees up your brain to think about other things. And I talk to other people who have taken these, and they will confirm every single time, like your brain works differently when you're taking them. You don't think about food all the time. And that is the biggest gift. The weight loss is a huge gift. The not thinking about food all the time, I might even say, is a greater gift, because I now have more brain space to think about other things that are way more important in my life.
Yeah. Talking about, I've had patients, I have some patients that stay on they lose some weight and they change their mindset and they get down to their goal weight. I do have some that will stay on and maintain, but I have others that'll get off. And it's interesting to talk to these patients, if I see them out and about, or if I'm already, acquaintances with them, and just to listen to them talk about their relationship with food and how different it is post GLP-1, even if they've gotten off the medication. Just the fact that they're saying like, boy, I mean, does this stuff stay in your system forever? Because I'm just not as hungry anymore. And we know it doesn't, but once again, it wasn't really in that case, it wasn't really the medication. That's been long worn off. They've been off it for several months. Now you can tell that they've changed that mindset, that they feel like, oh, I can accomplish not overeating. And I'm not going to let that define me. And I think it just frees their brain, and that success really just feeds into more belief in themselves. And when it comes back to mindset, I've never thought of it about that way, but it's probably really more mindset than anything that let them free up their brain and just was an awesome tool for them.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer and big advocate.
Yeah.
As a mindset tool, as well as a,
sure.
physical health tool.
I think we've just really barely, I think even with all the data that's out there on GLP-1s, I really do think we've really just barely scratched the surface. in all the things that these can help in life with. I think that when they first came out, it was just diabetes. When they were approved for obesity, now it's just diabetes and people that are grossly overweight. When I say grossly, that's a medical term, not, you know, being rude to anyone, but, you know, morbidly obese. We're starting to see more and more, especially anecdotally, the studies will catch up, that these are such powerful tools for so many people that are maybe not even, you know, considered morbidly obese, but maybe need to lose a little bit of weight. But also there are people that still are actually a normal weight, but the food noise is deafening. I mean, they cannot, I mean, it is such a struggle for them, and to be able to free up their brains so they don't have to struggle with that anymore is so empowering.
I can't overstate. I told Rick, when I get on there, I'm going to really be hyping it up because of what a fantastic change it has made for me.
They really are. I agree with you. I think me and Rick both agree with you.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's awesome.
Not to mention, like you said, we're not giving medical advice, but all the other medical benefits, all the other health benefits that come from it.
Yeah, I mean, studies continue to roll in with all kinds of things. Even tirzepatide was just last week or the last couple of weeks was got a new indication for treating osteoarthritis of the knee. Now, I don't think tirzepatide does anything to the knees, right? It's just people lose the food noise. You're able to be more disciplined. It's a tool to be more disciplined and change some of this lifestyle, and weight comes off. And when you take, we talked about this last week, but when you take 50 pounds off of every step on your knees get better. Yeah. Osteoarthritis gets better, and you're not wearing them out as much. But there's all kinds of heart benefits. I mean, we keep cancer. There's a new study. Yeah. And we'll talk about this another time. But a new study about
we could go on.
Cancer survivorship is greater in people who take tirzepatide than those who don't, and it's just interesting stuff.
Yeah, just a huge reduction in cancer risk and the inflammatory benefits. We know inflammation drives so many disease processes, and when they look at the inflammation reduction, I mean, these are things that we hope to just dive into during this podcast. And really, we love the GLP-1s. We love the mindset stuff. The stuff you've been giving us is just a great way to kind of gear someone's brain, especially going into the new year. Of saying, like, whether you're GLP-1s or not, I mean, the mindset has to be right. I mean, I've had people on GLP-1s and their mindset isn't right, and we will spin our wheels. So I do think that starting with that is great. And then looking at the GLP-1 as a tool to add to that, as opposed to looking for the GLP-1 to change your mindset. Maybe that happens organically in some cases because it's such a powerful tool. But that's not really especially it sounds like in your coaching experience does not sound like that's the answer. Like that's just, we don't want to rely on luck. We want to change the mindset. And then if the GLP-1s help with
use
that.
a tool to augment that and assist in that process.
Yeah, because I decided GLP-1s were going to work for me when I started taking them. Like that was just my mindset. Like this is going to work for me. And
that's a really good point.
I know people who are taking them who it's not working well, and they will say, I knew it wasn't going to work for me. And I want to say so bad, like, it will work for you. You just need to think, you just need to believe that it will work for you. And obviously I don't know that for sure, but I just think the mind is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I think along those lines that, if I have that mindset that it's not going to work, I mean, there are things that, all the things that you need to do to be more disciplined in your eating, focus on protein, portion control, timing of your meals. We'll talk about all these things, but all those things, they all feed into this end result that we want. And the GLP-1s help make those decisions better. But if it's not like you're a zombie and you do what the GLP-1 medicine says. I mean, you have to have that effort. You have to have that mindset. I think you're right that this is going to help. This is how I'm going to utilize this and use these other tools and processes and goals and whatever it is. I think that's important to make note of.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I haven't, once again, really in practice, of course, mindset has been something that's come up in my weight loss practice, but really trying to just think back when you said that, I know of I can think of several patients off the top of my head that are struggling with success with GLP-1s. And I think the ones that I'm recalling just off the top of my head, unfortunately, they have all made that statement in one way or another that I knew this wouldn't work for me. Nothing works for me. And, so it is doing some mindset work there. I can see that being a huge benefit.
So has talking to Maury tonight changed
All right,
your medical
Maury.
practice?
Come on down to St. George. We got a
Okay.
place for you in the office.
Awesome.
I'm going to only use you half the time though, like for myself, and the rest of the time for patients.
Yeah. We just got to change those beliefs.
Yeah.
Our body hears what our mind thinks.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It's all connected for sure.
So thank you so much for being here. We don't want to go too long for everybody, but any last thoughts, any like snippets of infinite wisdom you may have for our listeners?
I would probably just repeat what I've already been saying, which is just, you just got to believe in yourself, which I know is a big jump for some people who have for years and years and years not had those beliefs. But we just got to start with one little tiny change in what you're thinking about yourself. And I would just offer that every single human is 100% valuable, 100% worthy, 100% lovable. And to believe that changes everything. But I know that it takes work to get to that belief. Hire a life coach. It's immensely valuable. And, it is hard to do on your own. Sometimes people have to show you your brain. They have to show you what you're thinking. Just like what happened with Greg. He had no idea that was, it just sometimes takes someone else looking at your brain, helping you figure out what your thoughts are that are creating your reality. And that's it.
Awesome.
It's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey,
thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you being on here.
You're welcome.
And when I figure out how to put links on, we'll put a link on to Maury Gar Coaching on Instagram.
Yeah. Awesome. Please do.
Awesome.
Love to help people.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, the content here is not intended for medical advice. Please seek and have a discussion with your provider. We talked a lot about GLP-1s. Have a discussion with your medical provider about that as a possibility. And if you're on it already, great. We're going to talk about that deep dive over the next couple of weeks. Thanks, Maury, so much for being on here. And thanks, everyone. Happy New Year, and set some good goals, and we will keep on it.
Take care, Maury.
All right.
No,
take
we're
care.
good.
We'll see you.
Bye.